sneak and take this picture. Because, I mean, really, I don't think you're supposed to take pictures in church. But I was like, really, I have to have a picture of Jo in church. She participates through the whole Mass. And every once in a while, if the volume gets turned up, sometimes she's a little bit louder than everybody else. And Father Jim is just awesome. He really loves Jo, and he really thinks this is pretty cool. And so every once in a while, Jo will go, "Amen!" And he'll go, "Yeah, Jo, amen!" Our parish is the biggest church in Western Canada. There's thousands of people there. And yeah, he generally talks to Jo during Mass. Jo tends to participate in everything. This was a big fundraiser for the CP Association. Obviously, Jo doesn't have CP, but we do support them, and they have a variety of programs. They have one called Ballerina Dreams, and it's a ballet class for kids with severe disabilities. So Jo does ballet, generally in her standing frame. And so we went, and she was able to participate, but I'll let Erin tell you this story.
So this is the third day of Jo having a dislocated hip. And after purchasing with our blackberries all of the stuff she needed, she was convinced that she was going to still go to the Eskimos game, even though she'd been out of the hospital for like 2 hours after her hip. So the big deal had been all along that me and her were going to go together. So we get her all decked out. She had a nap first, pumped up on Tylenol, poor girl, and she gets all decked out. And so we get there, and it was honestly, once again, like being with Hollywood. I had people offering her like massive amounts of stuff. I had people being like, "We'll take your picture. Can we take our picture with her?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's creepy." And they were offering her donuts and pretzels and popcorn and ice cream. And I have an allergy, so I couldn't even eat it. And I'm like, I don't know if we can take food from strangers. It was so funny. They had the cameras on her. The mascots came from the field. They saw her, and she had her Mighty Mo out, but at certain times she also had her step-by-step, and we cranked up the volume, and the mascots heard her and came up to the wheelchair seating and took pictures with her. It was fantastic. So it was a big deal for her to do that and to be participated, and yeah.
Part of why she insisted she still had to go, and we actually still let her, is she had won season tickets. But most of the games are at 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and there's one Saturday, one Sunday afternoon game all season. This was the Saturday afternoon game. And we had already made sure we'd bought tickets. We were all going to go to the Sunday one, but it was at the end of October or maybe even in November. It was like the last game of the season. And we said, really, like, she won these tickets and she hasn't even been able to go. This is already September and she hasn't made it to a game. So we said, okay, Jo, we'll let you go, but if it starts to hurt, you have to come home. That, of course, never happened. No, she'd never give in. Okay, so this is...
Okay, so this is...
I'll go this way.
Okay, so that's Scott, curly-haired, cute guy Scott, as he's now called. So we went rock climbing for the first time with just myself 2 summers ago, and it was for her friend Taylor's birthday. And so I didn't know how to do it. I didn't rock climb, so we kind of made it up as we went.
Jo had already been twice.
Yes, she knew what she was doing. So then... we go again with her friend Taylor again, and it's just me. So now it's harder. I got to be able to hold her in a harness. I got to be able to help her with her feet, whatever. So I'd called ahead and I said, we need this harness. And then I had this little girl. I'm by myself. If anyone else would be willing to help with her and to make sure she's fully included with her friend rock climbing beside her, that would be great. So we had this guy, Scott, and he was fantastic. It took him about, 5 minutes of him talking to Jo, baby talking to her, talking really loud. That's another thing people do all the time. And her being like sarcastic and being like, hello, I'm not deaf. And he thought it was hilarious. And he totally got her after that. And so then he gets her up to the top, goes to the top, and there's a bell at each of the walls. And so he goes, hold on a sec, Jo. And he goes and he yells for some other guy. And the guy switches carabiners with him, holds him, and Scott climbs up beside her, and he holds her hand and goes, here, you can do it, your friend can do it. And he hits the bell with her, and she thought it was the funniest thing ever. She's never hit the bell before. So then they rock climbed back down together and went up a different wall, and he was the best. He helped her climb all the way up, and then he would go and he would climb up himself, and he would help her do the bell or whatever activity there was at the top of the thing. So then for her birthday, it had to be curly-haired, cute guy Scott. As we learned when we call, there's multiple Scotts, and that's what they call him. So we'd booked this reservation to go rock climbing for her birthday, and she'd asked for Scott, and Scott wasn't working. And so
He got off at 4.
He got off at 4, and the birthday party was like 4:35, you know, after school. And so he actually stayed, and he's like, no, it's for Joe, it's for Joe. So he stayed, and he worked with all the girls and made sure he was the only one to climb with Joe. They had multiple helpers, but he was the only one that was allowed to climb with Joe and take her up. So it was awesome. He's a really great guy. That's her cheering on. She had a page specifically for rock climbing and cheering on her friends. So she had all of her friends' names and different comments. And her favorite was, hello, I can move faster than you, or something like that. Made fun of all her friends.
If you look at Scott's biceps and muscles, of course she moves faster than anybody else. The man was cut.
We later learned that Scott's actually a firefighter. So that was even better for all of us. So, her friend Kate, I have so many funny Kate stories, and so does Simone, but one of my personal favorite stories with Kate is when Joe was at the beginning of this year, she had myself working with her at school, and she had a new aide, and it was an aide who had never really worked with someone with a disability before, never really worked with someone maybe that had the same complex needs as Joe, and she really didn't understand Joe at all. And so I had said, you know, they were playing dodgeball in the gym, both grade 5 or grade 6 classes, which was awesome because Joe's friend Kate was there. So I said, you know, I'll let you play dodgeball the first time with Joe. I'll play again, and then I'll show you some of the things I would do, and then you can try again after. And she thought that was great. She's like, okay. So she takes Joe out to the middle of the gym, and she's just standing there with Joe. And I could tell Joe's like, ugh. And my favorite part was I look at Kate, and Kate goes, ugh. I can't remember what she said, like new aids or something. Picks up the ball, hits Joe, and goes, well, duh, you can't just stand there. Move it, Joe. And Joe looks at her, and the aid's like, oh. So she starts picking up the balls, and Kate switches sides and helps her throw the balls, and it was just awesome. It's just a Kate thing to do, is to include her, and it was just an awesome
the lineup once she got knocked out.
I can't remember what happened.
The line up in the wrong line.
Okay, so then there were so many good stories in that gym. So then the aide isn't quite sure how to play dodgeball, so she has Joe standing in the wrong class lineup, and Joe's shaking her head, and the aide's not quite picking up the clues, and Joe's like, and Kate looks at her and goes, unless you switch classes, you're so on the wrong side, get over there. And the aide just looks, and Joe starts to howl, so that they move over. So Kate's been quite known to be Joe's voice when, you know, Joe can't maybe have the same voice as she usually would. So Kate's a pretty awesome friend.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost done. Do you want to tell a Taylor story?
No, you can, because it slipped my mind right now.
This is Joe and Taylor, and Joe's friend Taylor, they do quite a few things together. This is our local lacrosse team. So Joe likes cute guys and tends to enjoy getting autographs from cute guys. So she had quite a good time working her way through the lacrosse team. Joe developed a love of the Stereos, which I'm not sure if anybody here knows who the Stereos are, but they're actually a local band from Edmonton, and we know a number of the members, but they went through Much Music and ended up getting quite a good contract, and they tour. So the Stereos were coming to Edmonton. The first time they were coming that Joe heard of, they were coming to play during the intermission of a hockey game. And so I got home from school, and Joe had a bagel and a decaf, extra large decaf double ready. And I walk in and I'm like, Joe, what's with the coffee and the bagel? She's like, it's for you. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I take my coffee and my bagel, and I'm kind of looking at her, and then comes out you're the greatest mom ever. I'm like, oh, what? Well, she found out that they were playing during the intermissions for this hockey game. And it happened to be on the Saturday night that was her sister's bonfire birthday party in the backyard. We did end up letting her go after hours after her sister was done, but it was a big deal. This particular concert, she was able to go to the West Edmonton Mall in the afternoon and meet each of the singers. And she had quite a detailed page ready to talk to each of the artists and tell them all of what she liked about their music and have them autograph her disc jacket, or yeah, that's what's called, right? Disc jacket?
Yeah. Joe had Taylor comes over every Sunday, and for about 5 or 6 Sundays until they actually saw the concert, her and Taylor would sit there for hours and figure out everything that needed to on that Mighty Mo. They had everything from their names to like every random fact. And my personal favorite comment all that, some of the songs, before that was the Grey Cup, and Joe is a huge Eskimos fan. Her dad's a Rough Riders, thank you, horrible team fan. And so Joe was ticked that they had sang at the Grey Cup wearing Rough Riders
stereo
jerseys.
Sang wearing Rough Rider jerseys.
And Joe was horrified. She thought it was horrible. So she gets up there and she says, "Hi, can you sign my disc?" and blah, blah, blah. And then the last question she goes is, "I saw you at the Grey Cup. What the heck were you thinking?" And she gives them crap. And they thought it was the funniest thing ever, and they explained that they had to do it, that they didn't get a choice, but it was awesome. And I know Taylor's talked about it so many times, that she told them that they couldn't do it, and she thought it was funny. So
Joe likes to shop, and so we take her quite a few places. One of her favorite places has been Build-A-Bear. And so she's able to work through her own thing. Erin always calls her Hollywood because she has a knack for meeting people who are somehow celebrities. So 2 years ago, she got free tickets to So You Think You Can Dance, and her and Pierre went. Well, they got home at midnight, and he told me stories of how she'd met every dancer. So this year, when the top 10 dancers came, we said, "Okay, Joe, this is what you get for your birthday. We're going." And so the four of us went. Well, she got to meet everyone, and of course, her favorite are all the guys, right? Not Pierre. Pierre's right there with all the girls getting pictures, but Joe got all the guys.
Did you know that Jean-Marc's daughter has Rett?
yeah.
Yeah, we're quite excited about that. Maybe not, maybe not so much for him, but we thought it was cool. Do you want to tell this one really fast?
This is one of the great stories where this is Joe's best friend, Jana, and the lady standing there is Kathy, Joe's PT, actually, who's Jana's mom. And so we are at the Science Center, and we're solving a crime. And so Jana had actually gone ahead of each activity while Joe was still finishing the last one, and she would actually make everything multiple choice so Joe could ask to answer the question. So she would say, "What do you think you need to do?" and she'd have 4 choices, and Joe would use her mighty moment, and she would say what she thought. And so that was Jana's big thing, and she did it all by herself, and she made sure that Joe had solved the crime by herself by the end. It was a really cool story.
When Jana and Joe first met, Joe was 3, Jana was 4, and before Joe could come over, Jana had to take pictures of every toy in their house so that Joe could indicate what she wanted to do. One last story, Joe was able to meet some of the cast from Twilight, and Kellen Lutz in particular was a favorite, and he came over. He was fascinated by her communication device. He spent quite a bit of time talking to her, and their manager came over and chatted, and it was awesome. She got to meet quite a few people. We won't bother going through some of the successes and challenges as a group. I think that what we have put up are all things that you're pretty much in agreement, I would bet, and aware of. We mentioned earlier, budgeting is always a huge issue. Staff is very tricky for us because Joe has a dislocated hip and she weighs 70 pounds. We always have to have 2 people on hand. Makes it hard to find enough people. Obviously, time, there's never enough time, and it can be really stressful. We would like to thank everybody. I think some of the things that we've put up as tips are all things that you all know, but we do really appreciate you coming today. And cheers. We hope you have a great time.
Thank you.